We're happy to give every service that's, well, not every service, most services that are required. Hello everybody, welcome to Chica's Chatter Part 2. I'm here today with Amy Akehurst and Teresa Rosenberg, and today we're going to tell you all about client experiences with deals that we've struggled with, bent over backwards for clients, etc, etc. So come on girls, let's start. What's your stories?
One of the ones that stands out for me was when I had a lovely couple who wanted to buy an apartment, and the owners were two brothers. They'd actually inherited the property. However, they hadn't sorted out any of the inheritance.
Oh dear.
Which, as you can imagine, is complicated. And to make matters worse, they wouldn't pay for a lawyer.
So what happened?
So, luckily, my clients were working with a fantastic lawyer who I work with all the time. And my lawyer took it upon herself to sort it all out.
Brilliant.
For the clients. However, it wasn't straightforward.
No.
It took months.
Do you know, that's the benefit, I think, of us having good contacts, good relationships with the lawyers that we work with, because, you know, obviously we've got a lot of confidence in the lawyers that we work with, and they in turn give us the great service for the client, which is great. Because absolutely. I'm sure your clients really were appreciative of that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for the lawyer, this
would have fallen through.
Wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
The brothers were on two completely different pages. One wanted to do it one way, one wanted to do it the other. One of them said that we had to go to private purchase contract within 24 hours of paying the deposit. So the lawyer stayed up, obviously all night, getting everything sorted.
Crazy.
Went to get all the documents in the morning, had everything sorted for private purchase contract within 24 hours.
Incredible.
When the brothers got there, they had a bit of an argument.
Oh dear.
And the other one said, no, I want to go straight to contract once the inheritance is sorted out. But they wouldn't agree, and it kept changing all the time. They were saying, we want to go to PPC, now we don't, now we do, and she kept having to get everything ready, agree these appointments, and then they just changed their mind.
Just so you know, guys, the PPC we're talking about here is the 10% deposit on a property which you pay after all due diligence is checked, etc. So that's the second stage after the reservation. So just so you're aware of that. Do you know, going back to this though, don't you think the listing agent could have done a bit of a better job listing that property when we knew that, well, she obviously knew that there were problems? Yeah,
the issue was it was up with about 10 different agents, and the family who owned the property weren't the most straightforward to deal with.
Okay.
They didn't even know what each other wanted. So imagine trying to tell 10 different agents when the brothers themselves couldn't even decide. And then there was a sister who didn't live here as well.
Crazy.
So it was a very complicated situation. And if it wasn't for the lawyer,
it would have fallen apart.
It would have fallen apart. And my clients were so appreciative. Throughout the whole thing, we didn't even know if it would go ahead, because at any time that client could just pull out. They were threatening that if we didn't get this sorted, they would just sell it to someone else. So throughout the whole sale, my clients didn't know until the day of signing at the notary whether or not they were actually going to get the property. Then it was still very complicated at the notary.
Well, you've done a great job, because you kept them there, you kept them going, you closed the deal under those kind of circumstances. That's great work. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. But sometimes when you're working with another agent who's obviously in this case not got all the documents, not found out the background, it's quite a challenging procedure, really, isn't it?
A lot of times I find that some agents in a situation like that, they pull back, they just stay passive instead of actually actively go in and help and support and speak to their clients, even though it has been a difficult communication between them. But then to go passive and leave it to the other agent and the other agents, in this case the buyer's lawyer. What I say, well, we are in this boat together, so we should row this boat together, no?
Yeah, I think you're right there, Tez, because at the end of the day, as we know, just for you guys out there listening, when we list a property, every agent shares their listings. We work on collaboration agreements with all the agents out here. I may have a property their client wants to see. They may have a property my client wants to see. So we work with each other. So that does happen from the viewing process, registering the client right the way through to signing on the dotted line. And I think we all can say that we've got agents we prefer to work with. There's a lot of agents we don't know that have just come into the real estate market, which can be a bit challenging. And as you say, sometimes people just walk away. One, lack of knowledge, or two, they just haven't got an understanding of the property or the owners. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. You have to work together in order to get it over the line and rely on a good lawyer.
That is so important. And also in your case, I remember your story, that the buyers, I mean, they were completely confident with you. They trusted you 100%. And that is so important because obviously it can scare a buyer. I mean, I have had that as well. I had buyers from Austria for a lovely apartment, and they completely trusted me. Obviously, I had to explain a lot of things, but there were issues with the property itself that had to be solved during the sale. But coming from Austria or coming from Germany or from other countries, a buyer may not be used to these things. Yeah. So you have to explain it and you have to word it properly without scaring them and say, okay, listen, this will all be sorted. It has to go to the registry, etc., etc., etc. But of course, people are paying money and they're worried about what happens to my money, what happens when we go to the notary, etc. So that for me was a very, very long process, and this was just one of the deals that I had that I almost stood to lose. Yeah. But in that case, you must be very proactive,
100%.
And you must be on the phone 24/7.
Exactly, always available.
I think we all know that.
Always available. I mean, I can remember a deal a couple of years ago I had with an American client, and it was a new build villa. And it was beautifully staged, the villa and everything else. And they were arriving in the July, August time. We know what the weather's like then, right? And he said, okay, so we're going to be staying there this evening. And could you arrange to get the beds laundered, like the laundry? Yeah. So literally stripped 5 beds, took them to the laundry. I mean, this isn't part of my job, but unfortunately... You know, I think a lot of us are very conscious of our client relations, and that's the kind of service that we want to give. So, yeah, I was changing beds at 10 o'clock in the evening so that they could come the next day in their nice laundered bed and have a good night's sleep. Yeah. This is the stuff you do, you know, because...
This is just a little extra mile. And I think when I have this now, you know, when you have clients that are just so appreciative and they say to you, they tell you, I'm so grateful for this. We don't mind doing that.
And recommendations. You get the next one in the door. Exactly. I've got a friend who I'll introduce you to. Yeah. This is how a lot of Cloud9's business, from my point of view, a lot of it is on recommendation, which is great. But then equally, I think I can do a little bit too much. Yeah. You know, my husband sort of says, right, it's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock. Tell him you're going to bed. You can't talk to him now. He just wants to talk about, did they have this kind of flower in the garden? No, stop. And I think, you know, you have to know your limits, because that's the kind of thing I'm sure we're all guilty of at the end of the day.
Of course we are. But on the other hand, you know, when you've done it and you know, and you just see happy clients, you know, or friends of theirs call and say, oh, so-and-so spoke about you. I only want to buy with you. Then again, it's a shoulder clap. Okay, darling, I know I was answering the phone at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a client in Hong Kong and I was up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to talk to this guy. And this went on for 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. I mean, this is part of the parcel. We've got clients in the States. We have a global market here of clients, a global database, I should say. So, yeah. You know, you have to make yourself available for these kind of time differences, etc. So it is full on, but I think we're all in a position where we want the best for our clients.
Absolutely.
And I think we're all in a position where we can all say that we actually love what we're doing. Okay. So it's not a chore, but sometimes I think we need to I think sometimes you can give a little bit too much, and then you need to take a little step back and say, at my age, you know, it's like, it's midnight now, I need to go to bed, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, you guys go out partying, but I mean, you know, sometimes I think it's nice because... Yeah, exactly. But I think it's nice at the end of the day when you do give this kind of personal service, because you do get... Some clients expect it. I've had that. It's your job, you know. You know, you're just smiling and then you get in your car and you just say a few words to yourself, and you get others who said, you know, I really appreciate that. Let's go for dinner. I'll take you for dinner.
Exactly.
You know, so at the end of the day, I think, you know, it's all about rewards, isn't it? I think it's satisfaction for yourself. You know how good it feels when you sell a property, but when you've got someone to say, do you know what, you've done a great job, I'm going to recommend you to the next person, that's a great feeling. That's job satisfaction.
That's the best. That's the best that we can get. But I also think to get back to the listing issue, for example, when we have properties, is when we know that there are issues on a property. I personally had that. I had a murder deal that we stood to lose. Also to be straightforward in that case with the vendor and say, listen, we need this document because there are issues. And I actually had a vendor who said, no, you're all stupid. Yeah. You don't need that. And we were struggling for 3 months to get the PPC. The buyer really wanted to buy the property. They loved the property, but there were legal issues that had to be sorted out. And in this case, it was also the buyer's lawyer that I didn't know, but that I created a relationship with now. But I would say I'd always work with her and with her team because she really gets things done. Now imagine having to go to the land registry in summer in Marbella.
Exactly.
I mean, it was a nightmare. And the buyer who was, the seller who was my client was on vacation. Exactly. You sorted out my house is fine because it's been standing there for 30 odd years. Yes, but it's in the documents that there are issues. So we had sleepless nights. We were on the phone 24/7 trying to twiggle and wiggle. And it turns out we managed it all. We got it all sorted. And it turns out that the buyers who were actually coming through a fellow colleague, they have literally adopted me into their family.
Brilliant, that's great.
But it feels so good. But you know, for me, because I could, in this case, the vendor would just not listen. Yeah. Was completely resistant to anything, and they said, "Well, Tess, we didn't pull out because you were fighting like a lion."
Exactly. For us. That's right. You admire people for doing that.
And that really touched me.
Yeah, of course it does.
That really touched me.
You're on their side, you're working for them, and it shows.
Not just saying, oh, not my problem. Yeah. But again, I must say, the lawyer and her team
did their job.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's great.
Amazing.
So those relationships are really important, aren't they?
Too many agents just give up at the sight of a problem. And a lawyer can make or break a deal as well.
100%.
100%. Some lawyers, they won't even take your phone call. That you have to contact them via email only. Like my deal would not have went through because they wouldn't have even answered my phone call when I got the deal agreed at 6 o'clock at night. Whereas having a lawyer that you can just ring on the mobile on an evening, on a weekend,
so much difference.
Who you've got a really good relationship with can make or break a deal.
Absolutely.
So,
I think one of the hardest clients I ever had, they were an Irish couple actually, and they were looking for an apartment, and we started at Casares and we went all the way down to Guadalmina along the coast. 28 apartments.
I was going to say, you've probably seen a few along then.
28 apartments. And do you know what? In the beginning, I was thinking, the first apartment we saw is in La Perla de Bahia in Casares. And I could tell it was the one he was going to buy because the way he sat in the chair and you get a feel for it. And every room they went in, they measured with a tape measure. And I was like, and you know, in the beginning it was like July, August weather, and I was like, oh
amazing.
This is, you know, they're just time wasters because this is crazy. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we had such a laugh because, you know, these become kind of friends, if you want, over the whole of the week. We were seeing this apartment, that apartment, and then we got a little bit of conversation going, and I said, where are you staying? And he said, oh, we're Airbnb, da-da-da-da. Anyway, long and the short of it all was we sat down on the final day, and I think it was a 7-day tour. And I said, have you decided? And he said, yeah. He said, we're going to go for La Perla de Bahia, which was the first one. So he said, and also I've got something to tell you. And I'm thinking, oh, now what? And he said, you know, you asked me where we were staying, and I said an Airbnb. He said, well, I lied. He said, I've got an apartment and I want you to sell it. So I got their purchase and their sale out of one client. So that week's worth of work, yeah, of course it was worth it. And it was a bit of fun along the way, to be honest. But, you know, if you get on with the clients, a lot of clients, as you know, don't open up. A lot of clients you have to have we all know how to judge the clients, what rapport we can have, what we could get away with, what you can't get away with, you know. But these were really nice. And then they recommended the sister, and she bought one in Guadalvillas. So it always goes along the line, you know. That's the kind of service you give at the end of the day.
And that's why we're sitting here now. Okay, we had headaches at the time.
Absolutely.
Now we can lean back and have a little laugh about it. I think we could all write a book or two.
Totally. I think the biggest headache I ever had was selling a plot.
Yeah?
The biggest headache ever. I think plots are really one of the hardest things to sell, to be honest. You know, the measurements are different, and that's different. It's not like it's registered at the town hall. This plot's been there from day one, but they've put different access roads in, so the plot size has gone down a little bit. And then you view it with a client and it says it's 2,800 square metres. It's not, it's 2,600 square metres. And then you've got the buyer saying, well, I'm shortchanged, I want to negotiate on the price. It's a headache.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of deals are one of the hardest deals to hold together. My client bought the plot, and the previous constructor had a crane on site because he was halfway through a project. And my client saying, well, can you move the crane? Well, what do you want me to do? You know, how can I physically move a crane? It's a lot of headaches. And to be honest, again, the lawyers of the vendors weren't that good. So you're literally banging your head against a brick wall. But as a result of that, he's recommended, you know, friends and family. And here we go.
And that is something that I don't understand sometimes, with all due respect for some lawyers, that either they don't want to communicate with us, or, I mean, I've literally had a lawyer telling me, I don't have to speak to you because I have studied.
Exactly.
And I said, excuse me, with all due respect, you might have studied, but thanks to my colleagues and I, we have clients wanting to buy and to sell.
Exactly.
And that took a little bit the wind.
Take it away from them.
Take a little bit like, I'm not going to take anything away from you, but why don't we work together on this as a team to make things work, communicate with each other.
So tell me about the most strangest thing you've ever been requested for by a client, or which was a deal breaker, whether it was going to go ahead or not.
So my client, when I sold his apartment for him, he also bought a villa through me. He wasn't in the country when the sale went through.
Right.
And he was concerned, well, how am I going to pack up my whole apartment and move it to the
Amy
villa?
Removals, yeah?
So Amy's Removals came in. I managed to get a company who managed all the packing. They said they were going to take everything. But when it came to it, they wouldn't remove the lights. So Amy got up on the ladders and took the lights down. Also, he had an electric golf cart and a car to move. So I had to drive the electric golf cart from his old property to his new property along with his car.
Was that on the main road, like one of the roads?
I think I saw a video of that.
It was on one of the back roads around Alaya and El Paraiso golf course. So that was quite a fun day. And then a few weeks later, he came and I was like, here's your keys, there you go. So he was really happy that I managed the whole thing for him. I was taking down his curtains and everything because the removal company didn't basically do half the things they were going to, and ended up in my storeroom until we got
incredible
put into his new.
He was an elderly client, if I remember.
And his wife wasn't too well.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that one. Yeah,
and he was so happy because it was quite a stressful time for him, and he just sat back with his feet up while I did it all.
That's where the personal service takes place, you know, and it makes so much difference.
He was so good.
And you get attached to these buyers and these sellers because they're part of your life, you know, at the moment when you're working on the deals. It's all part of your job. So what about you? What have you had to source? What have you had to do to get a deal over the line?
A few. I'm just trying to think. Well, I've been in similar situations like Amy. I had a vendor. She was back in the UK and had a Spanish buyer for the property in Guadalmina Baja for an apartment. And they basically wanted everything out. Kitchen out. They wanted furniture out. They wanted everything out. And there was I. Okay, I'm going to chuck it on my shoulder.
Exactly.
So I was calling around to people, to friends that I have, and I ended up meeting two fabulous young Spanish guys. and they came with a little truck.
Brilliant.
And they were super happy because they got a full load of furniture. They got a kitchen. It was a used kitchen, but still, because what they do, they basically earn a little bit of pocket money.
Of course. Yeah.
Help people that are not as fortunate as we are. So actually with these guys, I have emptied a couple of apartments.
Brilliant.
With time.
Great contact. Great contact.
And we're doing something good on the other hand, because, for example, my Austrian buyers that I was referring to earlier, it was a similar situation because they wanted a brand new kitchen in. They did not like the furniture that was in there. So, as you say, it's the personal service. Yeah. But I think that every deal has its little tweaks and twerks that we need to deal with. Sometimes it's bigger tweaks and twerks, legals, like we've all experienced it. But I think that is what makes our job so...
That's what we're here for,
That's what we're here for. We're not sitting 9 to 5 at a desk and it's the same in and out. There's always something going on, always something happening.
I had to source a Steinweg piano.
Oh.
And when he said a Steinweg, you know what I thought? You know the Segways? I thought he was talking about one of them. I thought, what's he want a Steinweg piano for?
Oh, my God.
But I managed to source it. I mean, it was just over 100,000 euros. But I mean, that kind of stuff is where it's a new world for us, because when you're looking for unique pieces of furniture, etc., artwork, you know, I mean, yeah, we know we do collaborate with all the interior designers. As we know out here, we have collaborations, so we can always recommend. But something as obscure as what do? Google it, Steinweg pianos, and then it takes you in. There's another world.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that.
There's another world, you know, or you wanted a special door. And I was, where am I going to get a door from? Believe it or not, San Pedro. You know, the big door shop as you come off the... A7 on the right-hand side.
I was going to say that, yeah. Where you get the good old wooden stuff still,
Exactly. So we're always learning, and we always source things. There's always someone in the team who can say, yep, I think there or there, which is great. So working as a team, giving our experience off to each other. Yeah, if you want to know where to get a piano, I'm your girl.
Well, a lot of clients don't have the time to go and try and source these things, so they want us to try and help.
And I think sometimes the language barrier that scares them, and sometimes, you know, a lot of the higher end clients who want these kind of things think it's not their job, it's your job, it's our job, and that's what we, you know, that's one of the service we have to incorporate. And
but we learn something all the time.
100%.
Yes.
We learn something all the time, and that is what I love within our family. For example, we all work independently, but then, hey team, can somebody help me? And then Jackie comes, and then Amy comes, and Debbie comes. Bam, 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 bam. Problem solved.
Yeah,
love it.
And we've all got a wealth of experience between us. So I think at the end of the day, we're happy to help. We're happy to give every service not every service, most services that are required. You never know, this is an old girl talking here. No, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we're happy to work with any client for any needs, you know, be part of the team, come and meet us all, come and share your views. We just love working with everybody. And at the end of the day, I think we've got one of the best teams out here, both knowledge-wise, service-wise, recommendations prove that. So if there's any questions anyone's got, if you want to ask us about pianos or about driving your golf cart from one villa to another, please just drop us a line. But any questions about anything, we're always happy to help. Thanks for joining us today. And have a great day. Speak to you soon. Take care.
Done.
Done?
That was cool. Yay, girls!
Well done.